to read a compilation of quotes that I made from Srila Prabhupada about surrender. Okay, so if you go to the chat, you can read it. If you're not, if you're watching the recording, anyway. I guess if they're watching the recording, they can't see it, right, Chaitanya? Unless we put it on the screen, right?
If they're on Facebook, they will be able to see it because we have the quotes on Facebook as well.
All right. Okay. So this is from the Ramayana, and I titled this, Once We Surrender, Krishna Protects Us. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. So what's interesting about this is sometimes there are realities, but we don't perceive the reality. So we can only see with our eyes. If our eyes are not pure, or if our heart is not pure, we don't see reality as it is. So sometimes, because of that, we lack faith in the reality. We don't see it because we don't see it, we don't believe it. That's understandable. So, of course, faith is trust in Guru, trust in Krishna and what they say. But sometimes, because we don't always see what they say, our faith becomes weak. So Krishna is saying, once you surrender, I protect you. But whether you believe it or not, that's another thing. But that's what he's saying. And of course, you might say, yeah, I got sick, yes, last week. What kind of protection is that? And if you have a material body, you're going to get sick. It's just the nature of it. It's like saying, it's like, now that I become a devotee, I got in an accident and my car was dented. I thought as a devotee, my car wouldn't get dented, even if someone crashed into it. It would be something like as foolish as that. So that's not what it means. But what it means is that if you're a devotee, Krishna will take care of you. You don't have to worry. There's an example of the python. The python just like lays there and opens its mouth, and somehow the python is maintained. So it doesn't mean you don't work, but it means if you're a devotee, you don't need to worry about how you will live, how you will eat, where you will stay. That will all be provided. And more importantly, it means if you're a devotee, sincere, Krishna will protect you from forgetting him if that's what you want, if you're actually surrendered. So, of course, in this verse, Lord Ramachandra says, one who's fully surrendered. So, I was, maybe 15 years ago, I was thinking a lot about Christian theology and the idea of surrender to Jesus and he will protect you. And you just say, Jesus, please accept me. I surrender unto you. And this basically, this verse here is very similar to that. So you can go out on the street today, all of you, if it's not too cold where you are. It's cold here. It frosted last night in Florida, believe it or not. You all want to come to Florida to stay warm? Not today. You can stay in Croatia, stay cold there. Or in Edmonton, you can stay even colder there. Edmonton and Siberia, I think they're competing, right, for coldness. Yeah. But Pramanishta Bhakti is very warm because she has central heating in her house. Yeah. Unlike India. So in India, because heating's expensive, you just put the heater in one room and everyone sleeps in that one room, right? All 27 of you, right? On one bed, something like that. Hare Krishna. So, as you know, in Christianity, the idea is if you accept Jesus, he'll protect you from his sins. So look at this verse. Now you can go out today, get your big sign. It says, Lord Ram saves, and stand on the corner of the street and scream at people and say, if you accept Lord Ram, he'll protect you. And so someone will come up to you and you'll say to them, here, say this prayer. From this day on, I am yours. Or now you'll be protected. You'll be a devotee. It's like that's basically what Christianity is saying. You surrender to Jesus that way. So we have something similar in this prayer. How do I become a devotee? You say, from this day on, I am yours. And if you say it and you mean it, then you have nothing to worry about. Krishna will protect you and you can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Isn't that nice? And you become fearless. How do you become fearless? You can only become fearless if you believe in Krishna's protection. Otherwise, how can you become fearless? You can become mode of ignorance fearless and, ride a 100-foot wave and kill yourself, which many surfers have done. Well, they haven't ridden 100-foot waves, but they've killed themselves. It's a kind of foolish fearlessness. But fearlessness comes when you see Krishna's protection. So, you all want to say this prayer together, sincerely? All you have to do is say the first line. My dear Lord, from this day I am yours. Why don't you say that? My dear Lord, from this day I'm yours. And say it like you mean it. Let's say it again. My dear Lord, from this day I am yours. Hare Krishna. Wow. How do you feel now? You feel protected? Now you are protected. Yes. And if you think, from this day on, I must protect myself, Krishna will say, okay, go ahead. See how you do. Try it. And then you'll work very hard and nothing will ever come out perfectly because you're trying to protect yourself and you can't. But when you say, Krishna, I'm yours, I'm in your hands, I'm in your lap, I am your servant, then you will see. You will see things change. Yes. Yes. Okay. What does it mean if we really mean it? Well, you believe Krishna will protect you. If you say, Krishna, I am yours, okay. What does it mean if you really mean it? Ask yourself. Krishna, I'm yours. What percent are you Krishna's and what percent are you yours? Like what percent are you independent of Krishna and what percent are you depending on Krishna? So the answer to your question is a mathematical formula of percentages. Yeah, Krishna, I depend on you, but I have 400 cans of beans in my pantry just in case you don't protect me. Something like that. Not that you shouldn't make intelligent precautionary decisions. We're not saying that. But, but, mm, I mean, really, it's quite simple. Surrender means I am a servant. All right. How much do you believe that you're a servant? What are you trying to control right now? Who are you trying to control? Who do you want to serve you? Like, so it's like that, right? Yes. You know, we have talked many times that you can't surrender more than you're surrendered. You know, that you can't surrender beyond your level of advancement. But this verse is certainly an impetus to upgrade your surrender because look at what you get. Okay, so now we look at this prayer. Lord Ramachandra is saying, if a devotee says, from this day on, I am yours. So if you're not Krishna's, who are you? If you are not Krishna's, who are you? How do I want to say this? If you're not Krishna's, who do you belong to? Right? I am mine. I am all about me. I control me. I make my decisions independently. Okay. So to the degree that we do that, Krishna says, all right, protect yourself. So what's better, Krishna protecting you or you protecting you? So we think, you know, we're so conditioned. We think surrender is like I lose if I surrender. So I, I'm tiptoeing in surrender, like I'm walking in cold water, you know, getting my toes wet first. We're thinking I'll be the loser. Like how stupid is that? We've lost since time immemorial, and we're thinking I'll be the loser if I surrender to Krishna, and that's the one thing we haven't done. And that's the only thing that can stop our suffering. And we're so foolish, we're thinking, well, if I surrender to Krishna, maybe I'll suffer. Hello? Is anybody home? Like, if I surrender to Krishna, I'll suffer. What are you doing now? Excuse me, what are you doing now? You're not suffering now. Yeah. If I surrender to Krishna, what's going to happen? I don't have to come back to the material world. So, like, what's your problem? Like, what's the reluctance? So, um, that's that's what it would mean to not really mean it. There's some doubt that if I surrender, like there'll be something missing. You know, faith, the definition of faith, one of the definitions, a common definition of faith that is given in Shastra and that Prabhupada gives is unflinching trust in something sublime. Okay. Something sublime is Krishna, the transcendental process, the transcendental instruction. An unflinching faith means 100% faith. I don't have faith that anything else is going to save me. I don't have faith that anything else is going to make me happy. I don't have faith that anything else is going to satisfy me. Only you, Krishna. And I don't have a desire to work for my own self-interest. That's what it means to, as seriously surrender. Now, everybody knows when you fall in love, you seriously surrender to that person. So like I'm willing to surrender to someone who can give me sense gratification, but I'm not willing to surrender to Krishna. Something's wrong with that, don't you think? Yeah. I can't fully surrender. Yeah. Well, what have you surrendered to last week? Sleeping when you didn't need it, eating when you didn't need it, watching something on social media that you didn't need to watch. What have you surrendered? Well, we're always surrendering. So it's like surrender, such a scary word. We've talked about it before, but we're always surrendering. So, you know, it's like just think it through intelligently and you'll understand if I'm surrendering anyway, might as well surrender to the best thing, right? Yes, that makes sense. I mean, you know, if you're going to surrender, might as well surrender to the best thing, not the worst thing. right? Ah, Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay. On your mark, get set, go, surrender. See, let's see who's going to be first to win the race, right? Run towards Krishna. And some people say, well, how do I know if I'm chanting good rounds? You know you're chanting good rounds because the desire to surrender strengthens. I want to give myself more and more to Krishna. This is my pleasure to give to Krishna. Give every ounce of energy I have to Krishna is my greatest pleasure. To give no energy to material enjoyment, that's my great pleasure. Give my energy in service to Krishna, in service to others, 24/7. If I could do that, that would be my greatest pleasure. That's surrender. So if you're chanting properly, that feeling will gradually develop, or maybe not gradually, maybe very quickly. If you're hearing Bhagavatam, it'll naturally awaken that desire to surrender. And if that desire is not there, maybe maybe I'm offending devotees, or I'm offending the Dham, or I'm offending the holy name, I'm committing some offense. If I'm following the process, the desire is not there, maybe I'm committing some offense, or maybe there's some impurity in my consciousness that is preventing me from benefiting from the process. But the process will awaken the desire to surrender. And it will awaken the desire not to surrender to anything else. That's natural. That's what is supposed to happen by hearing, by chanting, by sangha. That should all happen naturally. If it's not happening, do more of that and ensure that you're not making any offenses. Okay. So let's go to the next one. From this day I am yours. Why don't we make a t-shirt? From this day I am yours. You can send that to Rati Kelly, Chaitanya Das. From this day I am yours. Signed, Lord Ram or Rama. From this day, yeah, that would be a good song, wouldn't it? Now, you want to hear something else that's interesting. When you come to Bhava, you say, I am Krishna's. And when you come to Prema, you say, Krishna is mine. There's a possessiveness there. That's a sign of higher levels of bhakti. There's a possessiveness. I am Krishna's, Krishna is mine. And as in higher rasas, the possessiveness is greater than in lower rasas. So Mother Yashoda's possessiveness is greater than the coward boy's. She's more worried about Krishna. Krishna's my boy. Coward boy's my friend, they fight, whatever. So as you go higher, there's more possessiveness. That's prema. But at least in Bhava, I am Krishna's. Right? So that's where we're trying to go. I am Krishna's. So we have another verse about protection. You can go to the chat and look at it. This is from Nectar of Devotion, chapter 11. In this Nrsimha Purana, Lord Nrsimhadev says, anyone who prays unto me and takes shelter from me becomes my ward, and I protect him always from all sorts of calamities. So now you might ask, well, if I surrender with confidence that Krishna will protect me, why should I pray to Lord Nrsimhadev for protection? We may have talked about this a little bit. It's a good question. Thank you for asking that. If you were any of you thinking that? Yes, no. I think it's Matura was thinking. I think it's quite natural. Yeah. Um, mm, yes. You could look at this verse in two ways. You could look at this verse as here's a verse for people who don't have complete faith in Krishna's protection. So Lord Nrsingadev saying, no, just pray to me and I'll protect you. Like if you don't have faith, just pray to me and I'll protect you. Um, that's one way of seeing it. The um, the material world is fearful. There are many fearful things that happen, and sometimes we face situations which are difficult, beyond our control, and so forth. And so it's natural in those situations to pray for help. Lord Nrsingadev promises he will help us. Therefore, Lord Nrsingadev is the natural shelter or the natural go-to deity for protection. Now, you could also say that you pray to Lord Nrsingadev, he'll protect your bhakti. And you pray to Lord Nrsingadev, he will remove obstacles on your path. Like in Nectar of Devotion, it says pray to Ganesh. And Prabhupada said, no, we'll pray to Lord Nrsingadev. He will remove the obstacles. So here, we could also look at this verse as all sorts of calamities could be interpreted as calamities on the path of bhakti, not just material calamities. But you could say also it's a bigger calamity. The biggest calamity is to forget Krishna, or the biggest calamity is anything that's blocking the path. So we can all pray to Lord Nrsingadev to remove the obstacles. And of course, this is so interesting. I was working this morning. I have a set of prayer affirmations. I was working on them. I was adding to them and combining some of the ones that were a bit redundant. And there are so many things a devotee prays for, so many things a devotee wants that he asks Krishna for. And as I was looking at these prayers, I was saying devotee prayer, prays to Krishna to remove obstacles on his path. The devotee prays to always remember him and so forth. And as I was looking at this, I was thinking of saying, and a devotee prays to himself. I was saying, I pray to Krishna blank. I pray to Krishna blank. Then I was thinking, should I put in, I pray to myself blank. I pray to myself not to give in to myself, to my temptation and so forth. So that's the underlying, kind of the underlying message in all these prayers when we're asking for something, help me achieve this, help me give this up. In another sense, you could say, help me not listen to my mind. Help me, uh, help me be motivated to do something that I'm not motivated to do. You know, my dear mind, stop demotivating me. My dear mind, stop focusing on this attachment. So really, we're, you know, in a sense, we're praying to Lord Nrsingadev, please, you know, protect me from myself, basically, when it, you know, really comes down to that. Protect me from, but at least if we're praying to Lord Nrsingadev to protect us from anarthas on the path, we're really saying, protect me from my own temptation to give in to those things, right? That's good. We should pray to Lord Nrsingadev for that. Sometimes devotees pray to Lord Nrsingadev when their karmic situation is disrupting them, their lives, and making it difficult for their bhakti. Okay, pray to Lord Nrsingadev. He'll protect you. And practically in every case, devotees have said Lord Nrsingadev protected them, chanting the Nrsinga Kabacha. So, did Prabhupada chant the Nrsinga Kabacha? I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't heard. But I would say Prabhupada had so much faith in Krishna that if he was praying for protection, it would just be a prayer of devotion, of like you could say, confirmation of his faith, like that. But again, I don't want to minimize prayers to the Lord Nrsingadev. I don't want to have anyone misunderstand. Naturally, when we're in danger, Lord Nrsingadev is the go-to protector. And so it's natural, as something serious is happening, you have a serious disease, or there's trouble with someone who's attacking you, or our movement may be attacked. Naturally, we pray to Lord Nrsingadev. He's the protector. So, but again, if you're a devotee and you've taken shelter of Krishna and Lord Nrsingadev, you will be protected. Yeah. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, that's a nice prayer. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, protect me from my internal Hiranyakashipu. Yeah. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, please destroy the Hiranyakashipu like desires within my heart. Sometimes I've heard prayers like that before. Maybe that's just contemporary devotees making prayers, or maybe it's somewhere in Shastra. Does anybody know? Has anyone ever read a prayer like that? Please destroy my Hiranyakashipu like Anartha's desires. Anyway, if you haven't heard it, I think it's definitely appropriate. If you want to be poetic, and if you were poets, then you would write something like, "My dear Lord Nrsingadev, with your lotus-like hands, please pull out the Hiranyakashipu, please operate on my heart and pull out the Hiranyakashipu desires. Please operate on my heart and pull out the Hiranyakashipu desires with your lotus claws, your lotus nails," something like that. When I'm in Mayapur, I always pray like that when I see Lord Nrsingadev. Knowing that Lord Nrsingadev can do that, with faith that Lord Nrsingadev can do that, and allowing him to do it. It's kind of like you go to the dentist and they say, well, we have to drill your teeth. Is that okay? And you could say no, or you could say yes. So, if you want Lord Nrsingadev to do an operation, you have to say yes, okay, go ahead, do it. Every time you chant prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, you could say, Lord Nrsingadev, can you do an operation today on my heart? Yeah. So, but you have to be willing, and a lot of times we don't see the Lord working because we're not willing to allow him to work. And you know why? Because a lot of us are not ready yet. Like, I don't know, Lord Nrsingadev, I don't know what I would do if you ripped out all my anarthas. I need some anarthas, for fun, right? If I had no anarthas, what would I do? I would just be a fanatic. I would be chanting and hearing all day and serving all day. I don't know if I'm ready for that. So that's why we wouldn't pray for that, right? Does that make sense? Like if you have any resistance to pray, my dear Lord Nrsingadev, operate on me. it'd be kind of like telling the doctor, well, I'm not ready for the operation. I don't know if I want to go through with it. Yeah. And if you feel that way, then what I would suggest is you need to be studying the Shastras more deeply. Because that kind of anartha, uh, it, you, you could say that anartha exists, of course, because we're impure, but we can also say it exists because of an impurity in intelligence. And impurities in intelligence mean that the intelligence is not functioning on all four cylinders. It's functioning like on 2 out of 4 because we're not really using it or we're not really studying deeply our philosophy. But as you study deeply the philosophy, then your intelligence works on 4 cylinders. And then naturally you'll think, yeah, it's Krishna. Yeah, please remove all these anarthas. That's what I want. So if you find some resistance or lack of faith, then increase your study of Shastra, whether you're studying alone or with a group or online. But we should go very deeply into these books. Prabhupada has given you 80 books, and there's a lot more books now in ISKCON. There's probably another, who knows how many, right? We have commentaries of the Acharyas on the Bhagavatam. You have, I mean, so many books, right, that are helpful to read. And if you don't read regularly, you'll never get through all those books. And if you don't read regularly and study, your faith is going to be weak. And you'll have resistance to just the concept of surrender will scare you. The concept of surrender should make your hair stand on end in ecstasy, not in fear. It should be something that is attractive. Yes, this is what I want. This is beautiful. Yeah. So your faith increases as you become more acquainted with the Shastra, with the philosophy. And I could just say from experience, as young devotees, when we study the philosophy, our depth of comprehension is quite limited because we don't know that much. So we tend to understand things in a very, like I'll just use the example of a pipe. You're looking through a pipe and you don't see anything else. You just see this narrow pipeway. So when we're young, we understand the philosophy in a very narrow way, narrow pipeway. But so therefore we need to study more, and then the pipe opens up. It gets broader and broader, and then we start to understand the same thing in a much broader way. And that um, it helps us in so many ways. Yeah, but as it relates to this discussion, it deepens our faith, and it's hard to have deep faith if we don't go deep into understanding our scripture. One of the problems that is quite common, I get to observe this all the time, is that we are conditioned souls. And you probably noticed that, right? And as conditioned souls, we see things through a very conditioned perspective. And so there are things that Prabhupada is saying that could penetrate deeply into our heart and consciousness that don't, because we don't understand them, because we're seeing them through conditioned heart, through a conditioned heart, through conditioned vision. So the more you understand Shastra, the more you study the philosophy, the more you begin to see it, not through your own conditioning, but through the eyes of the acharyas, the eyes of Shastra, and you'll understand it more deeply. And so this is a real this is a huge impediment to bhakti. You may be hearing Shastra, but your capacity to understand it can be very limited by your own conditioning. And therefore, it's like this big bright light's coming at you, but you're only getting a little beam of light. You don't even realize it's bright lights, 500 watts shining in your eyes, and you see like 2 watts. So sometimes that's what's happening when we're studying, is like we don't have enough depth of understanding the philosophy to be able to receive the 500 watts, but the 500 watts is there. So then we start looking at the philosophy through some kind of subjective colored vision. And so we don't get the 500 watts. And sometimes we might get the 500 watts, but the light is like red instead of white. So we get the wrong message. So I'm not saying that at any stage of Krishna consciousness, you don't benefit from hearing, because hearing is purifying. No matter how much you understand, it's purifying. But your capacity to understand cannot surpass the effort you make and the time you put into study. And that effort you make and the time you put in is going to increase your faith. And that's what it means to be a Hare Krishna devotee, that you're not a fool, that you understand Shastra conclusion, you understand philosophy, and that goes right to the core of your heart. It goes right to the core of your faith. So when you understand it deeply, then nothing could shake your faith. Does that make sense? Yeah. I was thinking the last few days that Prabhupada has given so much in his books, and there's so many other, as I'm saying, there's so many other books. So there's such a depth of information available to us that it's a travesty, it's a great loss if we don't take advantage of it. And what it means to be a serious devotee thinks, I have this life, and in this life, I'm going to try to go back to Godhead. And when you think that way, you will, if you're not thinking that way, or if you can think more that way, you'll notice your life shifts. Because if you start thinking, okay, this life is meant for becoming Krishna conscious, and I only have so many years, then I can't afford to like chant bad rounds every day. I can't afford to go day after day without studying well and so forth. I can't afford to go day after day overeating, oversleeping, over gossiping, and so forth. So as we become more serious about the goal of going back to Godhead, naturally we do those things more and better that will help us get closer to that goal. And reading and studying is one of them. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, and probably you know this, but if you know anything about successful people, if you've ever seen interviews with successful people or heard about the life of successful people, at least in the modern world, I'm sure it's always been true, but in the modern world, you can get information in real time. People will tell you, very successful people will tell you about their lives. In general, they're avid readers. Because the more you know, the better, the more successful you will be, the better leader you will be, et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite a common theme amongst those who are highly successful people. They're always reading, always studying. And you can see that amongst Vaishnavas also, amongst those who are highly successful Vaishnavas. They know the scripture quite well. They're always studying. Isn't it? Have you noticed that? Yeah. So I'm not saying you just read and that's all you do, and that's a guarantee. But I'm saying we our goal is to try to understand Krishna consciousness as deeply as possible, to always be trying to understand more questions in our mind. What does this mean? How is this true if this is true? Isn't it a contradiction? How can I resolve it? What did Prabhupada mean when he says this? This doesn't make sense to me. How can I make sense of it? What do the acharyas say? What did my gurus say? What do other gurus say? Like that. You're always going deeper in your understanding. And as you come to these conclusions through your inquiry and your efforts to understand, your faith goes deeper and your relish of Krishna consciousness goes deeper. One devotee was saying, he said, if you actually have faith, you can't fall down. It's not possible. You could never leave Krishna consciousness. If your faith is so deep, I am an eternal servant of Krishna, you couldn't leave Krishna consciousness. It would be impossible. You couldn't fall away from Krishna consciousness. It would be impossible, right? So what happens to a lot of devotees, they take up Krishna consciousness, but they don't actually take up the process properly. And so they have difficulty. So anyone who's having difficulty, the difficulty, at least you want to think, okay, if I'm having difficulty, what aspect of the process am I either not doing well or am I minimizing? That should be the first place. And who have I offended or what have I offended? That should be the first place you go. If you wake up one morning and you feel like, I don't want to serve Krishna, I just want to go out and become rich, famous, and beautiful, and go on a vacation to some warm place and live in a mansion. And you wake up one morning feeling that way, something has gone wrong yesterday for sure, right? And so now, what went wrong? Well, maybe not yesterday, maybe last week, last month. What went wrong? Well, maybe I've been avoiding something, chanting well, studying, uh, not controlling my senses well. I mean, all these things have an effect. Being in an environment which is not purifying, um, dwelling on tamasic things, overly absorbed in thinking about my problems and thinking about things I don't like, people I don't like. You just, these things all affect us. And so from what Prabhupada has taught us, we understand that what he's given us will give us the Shakti, the power to overcome any obstacles that we face and gradually progress to higher levels of bhakti. That's the confidence that Prabhupada has confidence that the process he gave us can do that. So if it's not doing it, something's wrong somewhere along the line, right? Or maybe many things are wrong, but we should feel inspired on a regular basis. And if you're not feeling inspired and detached, then just figure out what you need to do, what's missing. And if you do those things that are missing and you do them well, then generally speaking, your faith will increase, your inspiration, your motivation, your satisfaction, your happiness, your detachment will all increase. And these are signs of Krishna consciousness. So if we're not experiencing these things, something's wrong. And when we're not experiencing these things, what do? We try to replace those things that we're missing from Krishna consciousness. We try to replace them with material things, right? So if I'm not happy in Krishna consciousness, I'll look for happiness in something else. If I'm not satisfied, I'll look for satisfaction in something else. And probably all of us have patterns that when our Krishna consciousness is low, we start doing other things. More time on social media, more time with this. My Krishna consciousness goes up, certain things go down. My Krishna consciousness goes down, certainly. Have you noticed that in your life? It's like, so, you can see the symptoms either in your weakness in spiritual life or in manifestation of certain things you're attracted to materially doing. I had to say that because I think, although it's simple, it's essentially important. Okay, we have some comments in the chat. Victoria says, I have a fear to pray to Lord Nrsimhadev to remove something from my life or from something inside me because I heard that he can do it in a way that will be very much painful. Who said that? I heard that if I'm not ready for some real surgery of life, I should ask this from Lord Nrsimhadev. Is it really like that? How to pray to him in the right way, how to find the right words. Well, let's ask a question first. If you have an obstacle and Krishna can remove it, will you be better off and happier once it's gone? If the answer is yes, then the pain of the operation is probably going to be less than the pain of the disease. So at least in a theoretical sense, I should be okay with it, right? I have a I went on parikrama today and now I have a thorn in my foot and it's painful and it's going to be painful to get it out, but it's going to be more painful not to get it out because every time I walk, it's going to hurt. Whereas if I just go through a few minutes of pain, then it's gone and like I'm better. So naturally we tell our husband, our wife, can you take out this thorn? And they start, getting a little needle or something and open, oh, oh, just hold on a second. Just hold on. I'll get it. Oh, it's gone. Oh, 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 that's bad. That's something. So if it were like that, intellectually, we would say, yeah, it makes sense that I would tolerate that pain. I don't think, I don't think, Victoria, Lord Nrsimhadev is creating pain. I think the pain is our attachment being taken away. That's where the pain is. His claws are like lotus petals. So it doesn't hurt. It just hurts when you're holding on to it. So yeah. But if you still doubt, you can say, well, can you take it away in a painless? Is there a new operation? You can use anesthesia on me and take it away. So it doesn't hurt. But that's the only thing that's really hurting is our attachment, right? And and there's two things you do with attachment. One is you give it up because it's harmful. And two, you utilize it if it can be utilized and you can't give it up. So it's not like every material attachment you have is bad. But if you have material attachment that is bad and it can't be used, yeah, you have to give it up. But maybe it's bad, but if used, it won't be bad. It's only bad because it's used for Maya. But if you use it for Krishna, it's not bad. And so sometimes you can't give it up. So then instead of praying to give it up, you pray for the intelligence to understand how I can live with it and use it. So when we do our retreat, we're going to have an exercise which is going to ask you how to utilize an attachment in a way that actually helps you and in a way that still allows you to be detached from what you need to be detached from, or what you want to be detached from. But this thing you want to be detached from, that you can't be detached from, how can you utilize it in a way where it actually helps you? And it becomes, and you realize this is something that is part of who you are that you can't give up. So, there's some things that are like sometimes a woman may say, I want to get married, I want to have children. And then sometimes they'll say, but, I feel like maybe that's not the best thing. Maybe I should be more renounced. For most women, that is going to be difficult. And so we say, okay, this is natural. You can't renounce it because it's like inherent in your like physical and psychological being to want to be married, have children, and so forth for most women. So we say that's fine. You do that in Krishna consciousness because if you try to renounce it, then you can't, and it's still there. And it's still there, but you're not using it because you're trying to renounce it. I get away, and it keeps coming over. Get away. Just feed the cat, and he'll be happy. So the cat keeps coming, meow, 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 bothering you, and you take it to the neighbors, put it in their yard, and he comes back. So, the cat of attachment is coming back. You have to feed it. And then once you feed it, it's like he's okay. It doesn't bother you until dinner. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. We have Samira. I met a Mayavadi and had discussions with him about happiness and our true nature as spirit soul. He was convinced that this place here is paradise and that he is always happy. I couldn't accept that and told him that this is not a happy place, but we naturally desire happiness, but we can't find it here. He actually inspired me to study more deeply Prabhupada's books to be able to improve my preaching and deepen my understanding. Yeah, that happens all the time. If you are in a service where you have to communicate, especially to non-devotees, it's so inspiring that you'll have to study. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Now, what I would have told them, I said, you are happy in Brahman realization. You're not happy because you're in the material world. Like Prabodhananda Saraswati says, um, Vishwa Purna Shukayate. So for a devotee, the whole world is full of happiness. And you say, well, what does that mean? Krishna says, Dukhalayam Shashvatam. The whole world is full of misery. But the whole world is still full of misery, but for the devotee, the whole world is full of happiness. So yeah, they both exist, simultaneously, you know. It may be miserable in Ukraine, but you have a mansion on top of a mountain somewhere that's safe. So, okay, you're happy in Ukraine, even though the situation there is not happy. Something like that. Um, but your point is well taken. Mhm. Okay, so I'm going to post another quote. Chaitanya Dashi, Devi Dasi. Before she was a servant of Tanya, now she's a servant of Chaitanya. That was quite a transformation, right? A devotee never bothers the Lord by asking for protection. So now that we're getting really contradictory statements here, aren't we? A devotee of the Lord never prays to the Lord to appear for the sake of the troubles the miscreants cause him. And he never bothers him by asking for protection. Rather, the Lord is anxious to give protection to the devotees. Wow. So compare that to the one we read before, which says, anyone who prays unto me and takes shelter from me becomes my ward. I protect him always from all sorts of calamities. So how do we make sense of that? Well, one way we make sense of it, as I said earlier, this verse may be applicable to average people. And Lord Nrsingadev is saying, you pray to me, I'll protect you. But here we see the devotees, they already have faith in Krishna's protection. So, because they know he'll protect him. And and not only that, at the end here it says the Lord is anxious to give protection. So it's not even the devotee's doubtful whether Krishna will protect him. The devotee understands Krishna wants to protect his devotee. I see that often. Sometimes Krishna is like giving me even more than I want or need. It's like Krishna, like, okay, I have enough. No, no, I want to give you more. Like, you know, well, we can use more for your service, but personally, I don't need a swimming pool and I don't need a Rolls Royce. But we see, for example, with Srila Prabhupada, how Krishna gave him palaces all over the world to live in, and so many things. And not that Prabhupada needed them or wanted them, but Krishna likes to protect his devotee. Now, we've discussed this point before, and the point is that a devotee doesn't like to bother Krishna. A devotee doesn't like to engage Krishna in his service. Like Krishna. Hey, Krishna, yeah, come over here. Yeah, I need help. Okay, what do you need help with? I have this problem. Can you, can you fix it? It's not the mood of a devotee. Um, Now, if that problem is an impediment to his service, then you say, Krishna, I want to serve you. Can you help me? That's different, right? But, and we, if there are problems affecting our movement, that's not personal problems. So yeah, we pray. But this is what Prabhupada means, like for my personal inconvenience, I tolerate it. But for the inconvenience in the service of Krishna, then I pray that those obstacles can be removed. Now, you may know this story that Mr. Nair was cheating us and making it seemingly impossible to gain the land that we actually bought from him. He had a plan to cheat us, and I believe he died of a heart attack. And the news was given to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada understood that Krishna had removed him because he was creating so many problems. And in a sense, the devotees were a little astonished or surprised, not astonished, maybe surprised is a better word. Because a Vaishnava, a devotee, would never be happy to hear that someone has died, right? But Prabhupada was happy because he was an obstacle. And Prabhupada prayed to Krishna, can you remove this obstacle? He didn't pray that Krishna would come and kill him. He just prayed, can you remove this obstacle? And this is how Krishna decided to do it. It was elderly. It was not unlikely that he could die from a heart attack. But there was some transcendental interference there. And so sometimes situations like that, we pray to Krishna, like, what can I do? This person is trying to destroy us. Please help us. Please take care of him. And even though this man tried to cheat Prabhupada, at the same time, his wife became favorable, which is good for him. She became favorable after he died, and he met Prabhupada. So there's always benefit meeting a pure devotee. Yes. Okay. How many more quotes are left? Lots?
A lot.
Okay, good.
Almost half the document.
Okay. Well, it's always nice if you really want to understand something to study everything Prabhupada said about it, because if you only partially study, like we said, pray to Lord Sringadev, don't pray. You want to get, you want to get everything so you can understand it. So it's really helpful, like we did with the classes we had during COVID about dying. Yeah, we had like I don't know, a year's of class, some incredible amount of classes on dying. So if you ever need to, if you ever need to just contemplate that topic, there's like so much in Prabhupada's books. Okay, the next one. Mm. A devotee doesn't pray for protection. He knows Krishna is already protecting him. From a book called RTW, which stands for, I don't know. Who knows what it stands for? It's anyway, it's these little small books are transcriptions of lectures that Prabhupada gave, usually on the Gita. It is true that when one prays sincerely at the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord generally fulfills one's wishes. But those who have completely surrendered to the Lord, throwing themselves at the lotus feet, do not pray to him for anything material. Yet the Lord automatically provides for all their needs, as Lord Krishna assures us in the Gita. Ananyas chintayanto mam, ye jana pariyupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam baham. If you don't know this verse, again, you have two choices today: kill yourself or learn it, because I would be embarrassed to live if I didn't know this verse. So that's why you should kill yourself. But if you're not in the mood of killing yourself, then you can learn the verse instead. Of course, the first part is a joke, but the second part is not. Okay. Here's the translation. But those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. The single-minded devotees are surrendered souls. They can perceive how the Lord's potencies are working. They feel no anxiety if sometimes the Lord's mercy does not manifest, even after long pleading and prayers. For they have unflinching conviction that the Lord will protect them under all circumstances. You know, like sometimes we say life is difficult or miserable, and we wonder why. And, you know, later in life, we'll understand why. We'll understand, you know, when we're older, we'll understand how we needed these things or how we acted in ways which brought these things upon us. The mood of the present age is not spiritually conducive, and hence it is difficult to develop a high degree of faith in the Lord. Still, it is certain that faith in the Lord never goes in vain. In the beginning, we may be somewhat hesitant to accept this fact, but in time, we come to understand that the Supreme Lord is always protecting us. So in our prayer affirmations, right in the beginning, one of the first or second or third affirmations is I pray. Maybe I even have it up on my computer. No, I don't. Give me a second. I think I can bring it up. Yeah. This is number 2. I pray in full awareness that Krishna knows what I need and takes care of me. The next one, I pray with the conviction that Krishna fulfills my prayers in proportion to my faith in him and my qualification to properly utilize his mercy. Let me just put these in the chat so you can see them and show mercy on Gaurapriya, who's trying to translate those. So these are two similar but different ideas. Krishna knows what I'm praying. Krishna knows what I need, so he'll give me what I need. And then the third, number 3 there, which is the second one, but it's the third in the 20. I understand that my faith affects my Krishna's reciprocation of my prayers, my faith and my qualification. So sometimes I'm praying, Krishna's not fulfilling. Maybe I lack faith. Maybe I'm asking for something that I am not qualified for yet. Krishna, please give me prema. Well, I didn't get prema today. Didn't Krishna hear? No, Krishna was laughing. You're praying for prema? You can't even get up in the morning. Yeah. Krishna, please give me prema. And Krishna says, get up early. Then we'll talk about prema. Something like that. Right? Yes? So, um, so Prabhupada is saying here that um, a devotee's praying, but he has faith while he's praying. Hmm. Devotees do not pray for anything material for two reasons, as we said. They're free from material desires, and they would only pray for what is for devotional service. And the other thing is, they already know that Krishna will take care of them. Krishna knows what I want, what I need. Okay, there's a comment. Shalini says this is Krishna's insurance plan. Okay, next one. If you have questions, just put them in here or comments. I think the way we're going, I'm not going to stop for questions. You can just put your questions in as needed. Okay, we have another question. I just found it. Renunciation to wisdom. Yeah. I wrote, question is related. This is from Victoria. Related to your words about reading. I wanted to ask, what about audiobooks? I'm very bad at reading, but I like to hear and listening to books. For example, I listen to Prabhupada Lilamrita, helping to follow your instructions about Prabhupada Ashram. Is it okay to listen? It's okay, but we have books. You can actually go to different parts of the books and study and learn verses. So you should do both. And if you study means that you're listening not while you're cooking, you're listening while you sit down. You can listen while you cook and clean and all that. But study means either you listen to that same lecture like 10 times, so you've learned everything about it, or you sit down and you take notes. That's right. Otherwise, you listen to a lecture and I go, Victoria, what did you listen to in the lecture? I'm like, something about our relationship with Krishna. Let me go back. I have to, that kind of listening is not steady. Oh, listening is purifying. It's better than listening to Baby I Love You and your favorite American Idol or Russian Idol or British Idol. But basically you want to go deep into understanding. That's the idea. As long as you're going deep, it's okay. And Victoria, I just want to say I feel sorry for you that you don't like to read. And I will pray to Krishna that you like to read. So, the next quote. Oh, you're all probably wondering, when are we going to get the prayer affirmations? Well, we're having classes on Friday on the prayer affirmations. And sometimes we get ideas to change things. I just got a lot of ideas recently. So it's still a work in progress. But just want you to know, I told you I wrote a book, marriage affirmations book. And my wife's editing it right now as we speak. So it's not going to be ready soon, but we just kind of finalized the cover for the Self-Care Affirmations book so we can print it. And so it'll happen hopefully for the retreat. I I like the cover ideas we have now. So, yeah, Hare Krishna. Okay. This next quote is entitled, "A devotee doesn't pray for liberation." I'm not sure where it's from. A pure devotee doesn't pray for liberation. He thinks he is fit to go be sent to the lowest region of hell. Wow. Hmm. A devotee always prays that for my misdeeds I may be born again and again, but I pray, don't forget your service. A devotee has that much mental strength. Yogis and philosophers want liberation. Okay, so now how do we understand this when your spiritual master wants you to go back to Godhead? Is it wrong to pray to go back to Godhead? That's an interesting question, right? Yes and no, and it will depend on you. It's not wrong to have that desire because that is the desire of your guru, and that is Prabhupada's. But if you pray to be a pure devotee, then you'll automatically go back to Godhead, right? So then you wouldn't have to pray for it. But um, Prabhupada is demonstrating the mentality of a pure devotee. So rather than try to understand if this is how we should or shouldn't pray, let's first analyze the mentality of the person who's praying this way. Now, Prabhupada's talking about a pure devotee who's manifesting humility. And when a Mahabhagavat, the humility of a Mahabhagavat makes him feel that he is the lowest of the low, and therefore he is definitely going to go to hell when he dies, because he's the lowest of the low, the most sinful of sinners. We feel low and we feel sinful, but we don't feel lowest of the low or the most sinful of all sinners. I was just, walk down the street. I don't think you'll feel like you're the lowest of everyone on the street, right? And the most sinful of all. Devotees, we feel like we're better than everybody. We're not more sinful than everybody. We're less sinful, right? Ever feel that way? Less sinful than others? Yeah, because that's a factual reality. You can fact check that. Who commits more sins, the average person or the average Hare Krishna? Yeah, it's the average person. So naturally, we don't feel this way. So this is a manifestation of a pure devotee, how he feels. And so he thinks I am qualified to go to hell. And so I deserve it. And why would I pray to Krishna to go to heaven? And then Prabhupada is now referring to Bhagavatam, in which Lord Brahma is saying, Tate nukampam sushamikshamano, another famous verse. If you don't know, you should kill yourself. Tate nukampam sushamikshamano, which means let me tolerate, let me suffer for my past misdeeds, but your compassion is there. Always praying for your compassion and mercy. But the idea is that pure devotee thinks, well, I deserve worse than what I'm getting. You want to bring that verse up? We can read it. Tate nukampam sushamikshamanam. Bunjanaya kritam vipakam. Vidvagvapur virvidanam namaste. I want to read that before we go on. Jivite mukyo mukti pade sadaya bhak. I believe that's Lord Brahma. Anukampam. Tate, it should be Tate dash nukampam, not the anu. You got it? Oh, it's there. Okay. Let's go read it. Tate nukampam sushimikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam pidagva porpir vidadanamaste. Chivete yo mukti pades. Just see that my brain still works a little bit. I remembered it. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances within his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So Prabhupada uses this verse sometimes to say that a devotee feels like, well, whatever suffering Krishna is giving me, the material world is giving me, it's been reduced. I'm a devotee, Krishna's protecting me. So that's why the devotee thinks, well, I've committed so many sins, I should suffer, so I'm not going to pray to Krishna not to suffer. That's a pure devotee. Maybe not us. Maybe we pray every night before we go to bed, Krishna, please, I don't want to suffer. Okay, we're conditioned souls. Maybe, nobody wants to suffer, Like you ever have like a pain in your body? You get a pain, it goes away the next day. Did you ever get a pain? It didn't go away the next day, the next week, the next month. It's like, oh, my neck. Ah, you ever start praying that it'll go away? Yeah, of course. Krishna, help me. I can't sleep, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, so that's natural. So we are examining here the mentality of the pure devotee, understanding it and just taking it in. Okay, this is how a pure devotee thinks. Just take it in, just understand it, and then process it according to your level of bhakti. So if we go back to what we're reading, it goes back to what we're reading. Pure devotee doesn't pray for liberation. He thinks he's fit to be sent to the lowest region of hell. So that's why Prabhupada said that, because that's how a pure devotee thinks. A devotee always prays that for my misdeeds I may be born again and again, but I pray don't forget your service. A devotee has that much mental strength. Yogis and philosophers want liberation. So it's not like we want freedom from birth and death or freedom from pain. We want, as Prabhupada says here, we want love. And so that's what the devotee is really focused on. So that's the point that Prabhupada's making. A devotee, when he prays, he's going to focus, Krishna, I want to love you. Not Krishna, I want to be free from suffering. But still, the desire to go back to Godhead in this life, I want, if that is put within the context of this is what my guru wants, therefore this is what I should want. And I only want it because he wants it. Otherwise, well, Krishna, whatever you want, I will take. That's okay also. Does that make sense? It's kind of a contradiction, but Prabhupada, what did Prabhupada say many times? Please don't make me come back and get you. Finish your business in this life. Okay, so if I'm praying to go back to Godhead, indirectly, I'm really praying that I become qualified to go back to Godhead in order to fulfill the desire of my guru. There's a prayer by one of the acharyas, please help me become qualified to serve you. That's one of the meanings he gives to the holy name. Please help me become qualified to go back to Godhead. That's the idea. And if I'm not qualified, then you keep me here, I'll be, give me what I deserve. Chaitanya Dasi says that statement might be from a purport. I think 325. No, it's that statement above. Is that what you mean? Let's read. Thus the devotee who worships me, the all-pervading Lord of the universe, in unflinching devotional service, gives up all aspirations to be promoted to the heavenly planets or to become happy in this world with wealth, children, cattle, home, or anything in relationship with a body. I take him to the other side of birth and death. There, Prabhupada says a pure devotee does not pray to the Lord for liberation. Yeah. Okay, you can. Yes, there we found it. Yeah, that's the point. Which is interesting here, because the verse says promoted to heaven. And then in the purport, Prabhupada's saying back to Godhead. Doesn't, he's taking it like even there. And, you could also say, you could, and say Prabhupada is just revealing how he thinks. Because Prabhupada has said, when I die, I will go to hell. He said that once. So, yeah, Hare Krishna. So that's how Prabhupada thinks. And, there's always this puzzlement, like, this is how a pure devotee thinks, and this is how I think, and I don't think like a pure devotee, and that makes me feel a bit guilty, or that I don't feel that way. I don't think that way, right? And as I've said many times before, at least understand how a pure devotee thinks, so you can practice that in accordance to what is real for you. And that you can work towards that, at least like, let's say I'm thinking, I don't want to suffer. As we said, it's a natural thought. I don't want to suffer. So let's say you're thinking, I just don't want to suffer. Oh, Krishna, protect me from this. And then at that point you could think, okay, this is how I feel right now, but a pure devotee would not think this way. So then I can just reflect on that. At least I know that this is not the best way of thinking. And maybe I can, adjust this way of thinking. Krishna, I don't want to suffer, but this suffering, if it's your desire, then it's okay. Or this suffering would be an impediment to my bhakti. So, so we pray. And so, of course, as I think you can see from these classes we're having, that prayers are very relative to the consciousness of the person who's praying. And so you can't really pray from a state of a very high level of consciousness, from a low level of consciousness. But at least what we're discussing here can elevate you gradually. That's the idea. Yes? Yes? Yes. Hare Krishna. Okay, we have 7 minutes. There's more here. Scarlett's asking, do I have to pray or ask for anything? I feel like I tell the Lord what to do. You should, when you pray, pray is a humble supplication. So you don't tell Krishna what to do. You say, Krishna, please help me with this. Please give me this. Please give me that. If you feel I am capable of utilizing these blessings, it comes from a humble state of mind. So as long as you're in a humble state of mind, it's okay. Pure devotees can tell Krishna what to do. Krishna, don't do that. Stop that. But that's out of love. Krishna, give me $1 million and I want it tomorrow. Of course, a pure devotee wouldn't pray that way, but if you have prema, you could pray that way to Krishna. Why are you not giving me $1 million? What's wrong with you? You don't like me? You could say that. But you could say, Krishna, I need help. Please help me. If you feel that I deserve it, please help me. That's the mood. Okay. Another quote, please. Feel gratitude. We should always feel obliged to the Lord, for he is always anxious to bring us to eternal life. Since we can't repay him, we can simply feel gratitude and pray with folded hands. So in the affirmations, I mentioned that gratitude is it falls under the category of prayer. And so we, in the Hare Krishna movement, we talk here and there. You'll hear somebody talk about gratitude. You don't hear it that much, but this is nice that Prabhupada is saying, we our offering of gratitude to Krishna. Thank you for speaking Bhagavad Gita. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sending Prabhupada. Thank you for your Leelas, for the Bhagavatam. Thank you for coming as Mahaprabhu, whatever it is you feel grateful for. That is coming under the category of prayer. That's considered a prayer. So you can thank Krishna. Prayers are not always supplications. Prayers, you're not always asking when you're praying. Sometimes you're just glorifying Krishna, and sometimes you're appreciating his mercy. My dear Lord, you're so merciful, blank, and fill in the blanks. You're so merciful that blank. You've given me the association of devotees. You've given me a nice husband, nice wife, nice temple. You've given me the ability to serve you in this way, whatever it is. That's also a prayer. And then if you ever feel inclined to go through the Bhagavatam and study prayers, you'll see a lot of those prayers are glorifications. They're not always asking, they're glorifying. And Manatmanastumam partam daivim pakriti mashita. Not that verse. Devotees are always glorifying. Devotees are always glorifying Krishna. Manastumam parta daivim pakriti mashita. Bhajanti ananya manaso. Who knows the last line? Ah. I was looking for a verse where the Mahatma is always glorifying Krishna. I thought that was the verse. No, that's not the verse, but they are. They are glorifying Krishna. It's just not the verse. Anyway, Gata Bhuta Dimati, that's what I thought. But anyway, we understand the nature of a devotee. He's always glorifying Krishna. Yeah. So that's one way to glorify Krishna, is just to appreciate what you have that he's given you. And the interesting thing about appreciation is really the opposite of hankering. Because when you're hankering, it means you want something you don't have. And appreciation is valuing what you do have. So they're quite opposite. And so appreciation often purifies, or you could say undermines or releases the need or desire for things that we really don't need. Satatam kirti, that's the Satatam kirtantamam yatandas drita vrataha namasyantas chamam bhaktya nitayukta upasate. Satatam kirtantamam means always glorifying Krishna. That's the job description of a devotee. He's always glorifying Krishna, right? Today, Chaturatma Prabhu was giving class in Alachua, and he was talking about hearing and chanting and how important that is and how that's essential. It's the essential nature of a devotee. And he said, you may have some interaction with the devotee business-wise, like maybe there's a devotee lawyer and you're going there to get your visa. And he said, but you'll always end up talking about Krishna because that's what devotees do. So even you're like, it's like, yeah, I was reading this in Bhagavatam today. I had this realization. Yeah. So that's what devotees do. That's just how we become purified. And And sometimes devotees will ask me this question. They'll say, is it all right to marry someone who's not a devotee? And I said, well, will you be able to talk about Krishna with them? Because that could be difficult. Could be difficult not being able to talk about Krishna. They're not interested. So it's something to consider, right? They may be beautiful, wealthy, and so forth, but you have to you have to ask yourself, but will I be able to talk about Krishna? Maybe even non-devotees, they can talk about Krishna. Will I be able to? Maybe, maybe not. And you have to consider, can I live with, how difficult would it be to live with someone who I can't speak about Krishna with? Well, yeah. Or at least speak about philosophy, something. Yeah. Okay. So I want to end, but I don't see Ormani, which means she may be having trouble flying over from Hawaii to this Zoom. I just read an article about meetings on Zoom and um, how the brain works on Zoom, and it doesn't work as well on Zoom as it does live. You probably know that, right? Yeah, they put people together in live meetings and they put people together in Zoom meetings, and the live meetings are much more creative than the Zoom meetings. And just for various reasons, like you're looking at me, I'm looking at you. We don't really feel one another that much because it's just a picture. And we're only looking at a little space, right? In real life, if we're all together, there's space all around us. There's a different context. Anyway, it's interesting. So, Hare Krishna. Well, maybe we should just begin chanting japa and then see when Gora Priya comes. I'm gonna just tell her we're already chanting Goramani. So when we're already chanting, and she can then just start doing the PowerPoint. Okay. And I'm going to disappear if you allow me. I have to do a lot of study brain work, and it's always better before lunch than after. So I want to take advantage of that. Hare Krishna. Even though I'm only eating, it's just a little bowl of khichdi. It's like, size of two hands, but still. The mind works better before lunch than after. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Bol.